Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in, and welcome to the ongoing series, Talking Dance, sponsored by the Steps Beyond Foundation. I'm Alan Maniker, Foundation Board Chair, and I'm going to be your host and interviewer. This series continues to present an exciting lineup of dance artists who will share their stories and insights with you. They range from across the dance spectrum. The full lineup and information can be found at stepsbeyond, that's one word, .org. There is also a place there to make a suggested donation, should you be so inclined. And while we don't emphasize this, these are times when we would really appreciate any donation you're able to make. Your generosity ensures that we can continue to bring you quality programming. Also, please note that you may enter your comments and questions in the chat, and we will make every effort to answer all questions asked. And if you'd like to let us know where in the world you're listening in from, we would love to know. Tonight, we are delving into the world of tap with one of its foremost practitioners, Ayodele Casel. Ayodele Casel was described by the New York Times as, quote, a tap dancer and choreographer of extraordinary depth, and one of, quote, the biggest breakout stars of 2019. She most recently premiered Chasing Magic, a dance film encapsulating the wonder of collaboration and artistry. Ayodele premiered her one-woman show, While I Have the Floor, at the Spoleto Arts Festival. She served as choreographer for Carole King and Maurice Sendak's musical Really Rosie, for its City Center Encores production. She was a 2019 and a 2020 fellow at the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard University, and artist in residence at Harvard University. Ayodele is artist in residence at Little Island, a new outdoor performance park on the Hudson River in New York City, and is on the Artist Council for New York Pops Up, a New York State lead initiative to jumpstart live performances in New York City. She choreographed the tap sequences for the recent Broadway revival of Funny Girl. She's a Drama Desk Award nominee and a Bessie Award winner. Please help me welcome Ayodele Casel.
Hi,
Hi,
hi, Alan.
Ayodele. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm doing so great. I'm like, as I hear you with that introduction, it just makes me feel so I don't know, really proud of just the life that I've led
Yes, well,
so
you
far.
should
And
be.
yeah, thank
You
you. Thanks
should
to
be.
everybody.
Wonderful, enormous accomplishments, and
Yeah.
here you were, just like Jenny from the Hood, a girl from the Bronx,
A
right?
girl from the Bronx. Yeah, yeah, really was. I mean, Jennifer was our J Lo was like the our um yeah, the one who made it, when I was
Did
young, when
she
I was
actually
young.
live close to where you lived in the Bronx?
You know what? From what I understand, she lived in Castle Hill, the Castle Hill area of the Bronx. I lived all over the Bronx, so yeah, so not far at all. Not far at all.
Uh-huh. But
Yeah.
you actually grew up in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bronx and in Puerto Rico. So I was born in the Bronx and I lived there until I was about 9 years old. And then when I was nine, I moved to Puerto Rico and I lived there till I was 15. And then I moved back to New York City, back to the Bronx when I was 15 years old. Yeah.
Wow. And when you moved down to Puerto Rico, did you already speak Spanish?
No, I did not speak Spanish at all. It's so funny because and one might not find the correlation between that experience and tap dancing and how I found tap dancing, but yeah, when I moved to PR at 9, I didn't speak Spanish at all. I was like, and I remember going there and feeling like I just really isolated, not being able to express yourself. And my grandmother taught me how to read and pronounce the words with a letter stencil, and a b c ch uno dos tres cuatro, like, and it was like I moved in the middle of like school had already started, so it was kind of like we had to get going, right. I had to like just kind of jump, no hesitation, but I think about that experience of language and communicating, or not feeling like you could, and finding tap dancing many years later, and really understanding the key to tap, and tap being a real mode of expression, and
Mm.
so I encountered uh, that same barrier of uh, expressing when I was learning how to improvise and tap dancing.
Mm,
So
mm.
to me, it's like they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And the key there, though, is you said until many years later, because you actually didn't, you were off on a path becoming an actor. Yeah.
Yes,
And you
yes,
ended
I
up,
was.
and it wasn't until your sophomore year of college at
Hmm.
NYU that you first took a
Yes,
dance class.
my very first tap class. Yes, I was. So yeah, 9 years old. I knew I was going to be an actor. I was like, that's what I want to do. And so everything that I like watched and saw and like wanted to study up until that point, really was acting. I went to NYU as an acting major, and we had to take some movement classes. And my freshman year, we took Tai Chi. That was like the movement sort of work that we did at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. And then my second year, they they offered Tai Chi or tap, and I had become obsessed with tap dancing in high school. My senior year in high school was the first time I saw Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and I was like, man, I wanted to be Ginger so bad, Alan. You have no idea. Like I was like obsessed with her, like obsessed with her. I like watched all of her movies. I even like I had her autobiography, and I wrote in at the end of the autobiography there was she said you can mail a photograph, and that she would, with the self-addressed stamped envelope, and that and she would return it autographed. And I did that, and I own a personalized Ginger Rogers autograph thing. I loved her. My mom bought me this prom dress that kind of looked like her dress. It didn't look like it at all, but in my mind I was like, this is Ginger's dress in Swing Time, you know.
Wait, was
Yeah, I was
that the one?
obsessed with her.
Was Swing Time the one where she was in all feathers?
No, that was Top Hat.
Okay.
Top Hat was the feathers, but in Cheek to Cheek. But Swing Time, it was this like white. By the way, my prom dress was black, so there it was not looking like it at all. But it was white. But it was white, and it had like kind of like these like rhinestones, or like crossing this way. And she wears it in Never Gonna Dance. It's one of the last waltzes ballads that she dances with Fred. And I thought it was just so beautiful, and I wanted that dress. I did not find that dress, but it didn't matter. To me, I was like, it's the intent that matters. And
And look at where it took you. So tell me, when you first started taking this tap class,
yeah.
did it come easy?
In my it's it was a very basic tap class. It was like, tap class for actors. So it was like, toe, 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 heel, heel. It was like very, very basic. But because I was living my dream. I felt like even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna fake it until I make it, right? So I'm gonna just like pretend that it says that I'm doing it as easily as Ginger would do it. So it felt easy, and especially because my other classmates didn't want to be there at all, and they just were so like, protesting it, that it made me feel like I was like really like the professional in the class, and I really thought that until I met Bakari Wilder about a year into those classes, and he was a freshman when I was a sophomore. And he was a young dancer from DC, a real tap dancer. I say real in that he had like grown up doing it and was in the community and understood it in ways that I had no clue were even possible. And so when I met him is when I knew that that this was not as easy as it had felt, But I mean, I like telling this story just because I remember I was like the best in my class at Strasberg. I was like, flap, heel, flap, heel, flap, heel. And I met Bakari, and my friend Eugene Bird, who's an actor. He said, he's like, you got to meet, because Ayodele, you love tap, he loves tap. Y'all got to get together and jam. And I was like, yeah, let's go and jam. Come on, I'm going to jam. And we go to Faisal's. He took me to Faisal's, which I don't know if anybody remembers, but it was on 47th Street and 8th Avenue. The building has since been torn down. I think it's a hotel now, but long story short, I get in there with my Ginger Roger looking tap shoes. They did not look like hers, but in my mind, as I said, and I'm like waiting to jam with this tap dancer, and he puts on his shoes and he starts like, and I was like, oh, wait, wait, that's not, I haven't been doing that. That's not what I'm doing, but it was that moment where I learned, where he was very generous, and, he realized that I did not know what I was doing. And he said, tap dancing is not just a series of steps, and it's not this. It's just not a maxi four. It's not a combination. It's like, he's like, do you know Gregory Hines, and do you know Sammy Davis Jr., and do you know the Nicholas brothers, and do you know Baby Lawrence? Do you know Jimmy Slide? And I was like, no, I don't know them. He's like, yeah, no, it's expression. He goes, and it comes from yourself. And he started to talk to me about improvisation, and my mind just like, I realized that there was like much more for me to like just dig into with it. And then as a young Black person, Black Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx, who idolized Ginger Rogers, because even though I loved Ginger, there was a part of me that felt like nobody's ever going to see me as Ginger. Like I would love to like live this like life as a tap dancer. I said, but nobody's going to look at this Bronxite girl, and as Ginger Rogers. But
Well, you were right. I don't think I'd ever mistake you for Ginger Rogers.
No, certainly physically, but I meant like in terms of opportunity, like I just didn't feel the opportunity was there for, even if I wanted to do that, and so for him to sort of go down this like litany of like artists, great, incredible artists who were Black, who were of my, it just made me feel like that was my ancestral legacy as well.
Yeah. But so tell me, was there, because there must be at least a step that really gave you trouble?
I would say like it wasn't necessarily the steps, it was the improvisation. The concept of improvisation in tap dancing is like really forces you to come face to face with a lot of fear of like, do I have something to say? Can I access the vocabulary that I've learned? Am I going to be repetitive? Can I keep time? Is it, musical enough? Is it like all of those things that like really can be very paralyzing for people? I remember like when Bakari was like, okay, just, come, I go, you go. And I just remember freezing. And it reminded me of Puerto Rico. It reminded me of when I was a kid when at 9 years old, and I wanted to say something. I didn't know the word, and I just remember like putting my foot down and stomp and stopping. And he would be like, just move. And then run one thing, flap, heel, flap, heel, flap, but to get to that moment of flow, of freedom, is like, that's a journey, right? So that was work, and I think it's the thing that keeps me returning to tap dancing is the fact that it's a lifelong sort of lesson. Like you can master or an aspect of improvisation, let's say, and then you're met with another challenge and then another and another and another. And I think for me it's the thing that keeps me coming back, to it. It's like knowing that you can't figure it all out in one. There is
Yeah,
no
yeah,
being done with it.
yeah. So at what point was there a specific moment where you said, "Oh, not going to be an actor, going to be a tap dancer"?
Never. I never thought I wasn't going to be an actor, but it was just something that was always like there. But because you have to remember, Alan, I started doing this in a time where I actually saw both of those arts collide in the most beautiful and powerful ways. And that was in 1995 when Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk was opened up at the Public Theater. And so I imagine I'm an acting major at NYU. I have just discovered this like real, understanding of like what's possible with tap dancing for myself, not even in terms of like creatively, right? And then I remember Bakari he says, "You got to come see us at the Public." He says, "We're doing the show." I said, "Does it have tap in it?" And he was like, "Yeah, it has tap in it." And I go to the Public Theater, and I just remember having that moment of like being in that seat, and that first moment comes on and that spotlight hits Savion. And he's standing there with like a towel and his basketball shorts. And I was looking around like, is anybody else listening to this? Like I couldn't imagine that kind of expression was like, could exist on a stage, on a legitimate theatrical New York City stage. And so for
Yeah.
me to see the story of Black people in this country told so brilliantly through tap dancing, where there was acting, clearly, obviously, and incredible tap dancing, I was like, oh, these two things are a way of life. And so I think for me, even when I have been, just tap dancing, not acting in separate, like just strictly acting projects, like I always look at my work that I do as a tap dancer as a story and narrative. And so for me, I get to still marry that, so I didn't abandon it fully.
Got it. So for those of our audience that might not know, Savion Glover's
Mhm.
production was Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, and I actually saw that as well. I wonder if I was sitting next to you. There was, maybe I
Mhm.
was sitting next to you when I saw it too, a squirmy young lady. Did you save your first pair of tap shoes?
Oh yes, no, I own every pair of every pair of tap shoes I've ever owned is in my basement. I
How
don't throw them
many how
out.
many pairs are you up
Oh,
to?
ooh, I'm not quite sure. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. We kind of go through like maybe two or three a year. So let's say like
30?
50, 40, 40,
50?
40, 40, 45.
So by
I
the
don't throw
time
them out.
you're done, you're going to need a bigger basement.
Yeah, I know. I know. I don't ever want to throw them out because I know exactly, especially the first pair. I only gave one pair away, and I let Michelle Dorrance borrow them one time, and they're somewhere. I don't even know where they are right now. Every
You
now and
mean
again,
she
she'll
didn't
be.
give them back?
No, she was like, she didn't have them, and I was like, okay, you can like borrow them, and
Well, we
then
got to say something.
yeah, I know.
The next time when I see her, I'm going to tell her,
She's
you need to
yes,
return
exactly.
Ayodele's shoes.
Yes, I don't know. It's like, where's Waldo? Where are Ayodele shoes? Somewhere in the world.
All right, so let's look. Let's
Mhm.
look at something. Let's look at some of your work, okay?
Okay, wonderful. All right.
And let me get it up here.
Mhm. Oh. Hmm. Shuffle, heel, toe, a cramp roll, a paddling roll, and over the top. They're just steps and words. Alone, they don't really have a lot of meaning, but when I have something to say musically and rhythmically, they're, to me, as profound as any great piece of literature. Tap dancing is genius. I think it's like magic. That you have two pieces of metal on each foot and an infinite amount of music. A groove Slow, no hesitation. When I dance, I feel like Ray Barreto on the congas. I feel like I'm Orestes Villado on timbales. I feel like I'm Tito Puente on timbales. I feel like I'm Hector Lavoe when he sings his soul. It's also where I get to be all of me, a Black and Puerto Rican woman, fully connected to both cultures. I wanted to tap because of watching Fred and Ginger in high school. Black and white photos of movie stars lined the wall in my Bronx bedroom. After school, I'd pop Roberta in the VCR for my daily dose of Hollywood glamour. I'd teach myself how to tap along with Fred and Ginger. My brother would come into the room and say, "You are crazy." And I didn't really care what he said because I loved it and it made me happy. And I'd go for lap, heel, for lap, heel, for lap, heel, heel, for lap, heel, for lap, heel, for lap, heel, heel. Again, again, again. Eventually, I got to the point where I could really, really do this.
Wow, that was amazing, amazing. How does it feel to watch yourself?
Well, I've done that piece like a gazillion times, so I'm like, oh, that was one of the first times I performed it. I love that question because a lot of artists, like I speak to a lot of tap dancers, and when I ask them how they feel about their performances, most often they're like, they don't like it, they don't like watching themselves, and I have learned to enjoy it because I look at it as like it's a lot of gratitude that I feel. But also like that's how you learn, and also to see like how the growth from like moment to moment to moment to moment. But yeah, I teach a lot of young people. I talk to them about like you have to sometimes be your biggest cheerleader, and it's because there are times when there are lulls in your career, or there are times where there are lulls in moments where you need affirmation and you need support, and if you don't love yourself, right, then how are other people going to love you? So I have really enjoyed I have learned to really enjoy watching and being grateful for the work that I do and how I do it.
But at the same time, can you be your own hardest critic and still enjoy?
Yeah. I mean I feel like it's taken me so long to get to this point. I mean, that's kind of like it's a loaded question, but yeah, because I spent years not like just like beating myself up for like I would finish a performance and be like, oh, I didn't keep time in this one section, or I meant to do this and I didn't do that, and and I just I have learned to really let go of that kind of expectation, right? And to like and to perform while fully being in the moment and not judging myself for whatever it is that happens. Because I find like if you're just there, if your intent is clear, then you can let it go. You can let it go. So yeah, I think, and I mean, I feel like I've been doing this now for in this way publicly for like 25 plus years. So I There's a certain level of trust that I have for sure that there's a base level of goodness, for lack of a better word.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So
So,
mhm,
but so other than Fred and Ginger, do you have
mhm.
other tap idols or anybody that you haven't worked with in the tap scene that you would like to?
Tap idols. I mean, God, I love Gregory Hines. He was a mentor of mine, and we all just adored him and idolized him. And he was so accessible to us, even though he was a movie star. um, so I would say I loved Gregory so much. I loved Baby Lawrence. These are influences. Like I've watched Baby Lawrence a gazillion times. I've watched Lois Bright a gazillion times, like down to her mannerisms and the way she adjusts her, you know, her coat jacket, the sleeve of her jacket as she's performing. And then, yeah, I think that's like a kind of a tradition of tap dancers to sort of study the people who really did it really great. So we have a blueprint. And then as far as like new people, man, I just was in University of Michigan, co-directing, co-choreographing Sophisticated Ladies with the cast there, and they were phenomenal. They were so phenomenal. There's like talent. I love I love what's accessible to young people now. Like they not only have the technical skill, right? And the like the drive and the fire, but so many of them are coming with like these incredible voices and like just this understanding of like their full creative expression. And that is like really exciting to me. So yeah, there's like some new dancers out there, Cole Newberg, and Kate Lusant, and I love, and also like I'm getting to work now with young people that were my students that are not, they're still young, but like I think about Dario Nadarelli, and Luke Hickey, and I've gotten to, yeah, I, Demi Remick, like I love them. I love them all. Naomi Funaki is an incredible talent who I've gotten the pleasure of like,
It's part of a continuum, right?
it really is. I feel like that. I feel just like that. I feel every time I engage with a young dancer, I think about Bakari. I think about Gregory. I think about Ted Lewis Levy, those mentors of mine that really, you know, from peer to older, because Bakari was a year younger than I am, but I mean, he was wholly my, my one of my mentors. And I think about those moments and the thread to now.
But then, after that first time that you saw Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, how long afterwards was it that you met Savian in person?
I met him, I want to say probably a few months after that, just sort of in past. No, actually, I'm not lying. I'm lying. I met him at, he was doing the Broadway show. It had transferred to Broadway in 96. And Bakari introduced me to him. I remember in the alleyway, the stage door alleyway. And
Did you go
I
like
just,
this?
no, but I was just like, golly, I was so inspired by him. And I would just show up to all of the things that he was doing. So if he was doing a set at the New Eureka Poets Cafe, I would go down there because he would always open the floor at the end of each performance where, if you were there, you could put on your shoes and go dance a little bit, So everywhere he went, I went with my tap shoes. And every time he would open the floor, I would get up there and go and dance. And then there was one time at the Eureka Poets Cafe, I think I have this on VHS somewhere, where I went up there and I just remember feeling the most freedom that I had up until in my young tap dancing life. But and it was shortly after that he was like, what are you doing with he asked me for 4 bars. He's like, the next time I see you, can you show me 4 bars? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I went home and I was like, oh my God, I was trying to do like the most intricate, most exciting 4 bars I've ever done in my life. And you know something? He never asked me for it. He never asked me for it. He said, I'm doing this. I'm going to put you on this football thing that we're doing. And I was like, football. I had just quit my job at Kenneth Cole because I was like, I'm going to be a tap dancer. I'm like, I'm not selling shoes anymore. I'm going to, make magic in my own shoes. And this was March when he said, I'm going to put you on this football thing. And I thought, football is in the fall. And I'm like, golly, this is going to be a long, long summer, spring of no work. Right. And it turned out that we went into rehearsals right away for Monday Night Football in that April. And that was the beginning of Not Your Ordinary Tappers, which is the group that he that we toured with for 3 years after he left Noise Funk.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
And so then with Savian, you eventually performed at the White House, yeah?
Yes, that was the a year after that. So that was 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
We
there
went
you
everywhere.
go.
We performed at the White House. We performed everywhere.
But I can't even imagine. What was it? Walk us through that of performing
Yeah.
at the White House. You're showing up at the gate of the White House and you go,
Yes.
hi.
And there's a lot of security. And I remember going to the bathroom at the White House and being like, wow, I'm in the the bathroom at the White House. But you know something? I also remember um, that's when I first met Cartier Williams, who was like 6 years old at the time. And he's not six anymore, I think at this point, right? So this is like 20, 4 years later. So he's like almost 30. Actually, he just sent me a voice text yesterday. So it's crazy. Like, he was six. I'll never forget that. And Jimmy Slide was with us. And, we loved Jimmy as well. And that was it was so surreal. But, those 3 years were very, we went everywhere. We had an off-Broadway show that we did twice, like one summer and then again then the following. And then we flew to LA. We did the Jerry Lewis Telethon, Jamie Foxx show, went to Amsterdam. Like we were like everywhere.
But I still gotta know, like, what's it like to look out across the footlights and see the President of the United States?
It was very surreal. And that was when he introduced me, and as we're performing, he introduces me as the first lady to and Hillary Clinton was the
Well,
first lady there at the time.
He apologized to her first, saying due
Yeah.
respect.
She said, no disrespect to you, but we have our own first lady. And it was wild. I mean, it was just, I think it was I'm sure it was surreal, and I was young and taking it all in. It was kind of felt like a little, right now it feels like a blur, but I knew that I was very fortunate, to be able to
Wonderful. It sounds
go to these
wonderful.
places.
So then in that continuum, now you're also choreographing, and of course
Hmm.
the biggest thing was that you choreographed the new Broadway revival, the tap
Hmm.
sequences for Funny Girl.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did you have a connection with someone on the creative team, or did you have to audition?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. So actually, that piece that you just showed, while I have the floor, that was a benefit. That was at the St. James Theater, and it was a benefit for Hillary Clinton. It was during the 2016 elections, and Michael Mayer was the director of that, and I had met Michael earlier that summer at New York City Center during Encores, where I had premiered that piece, and so he contacted me. He was directing that show as well. So when he was tasked with directing this benefit fundraiser for Hillary, he asked me if I would perform that piece because, for obvious reasons, it was, I'm naming women and I'm a woman, and, it was the first female, presidential candidate. And so that's how I met Michael, and I adored Michael. And so, and we've just been very friendly ever since. And anything that I do, I invite him to, and we became friends. And he saw me at the Joyce in 2019. I invited him, and shortly after that, he was like, "I would like to talk to you about something." I said, "Yeah." So we went out to dinner, and he said, I have a crazy idea. I am doing a show, and I am working with a choreographer, but she doesn't tap dance. But I'm wondering if you would want to choreograph the tap in the thing. And he's like, but I can't tell you what it is. And I was like, yeah, of course. I said, absolutely. Just, I'm down. I'm like, anything that Michael wants me to do, I'm like, yes, let's do it. Cause I just adore him. So anyway, and so for like months, he couldn't tell me what it was. And then finally I said, well, you just tell me what it is. Cause I don't know what I need to prepare, And he said, okay, but you can't say anything. He's like, it's Funny Girl. And I was like, what? Like, I could not believe it. I'm like, because I was like, that hasn't been on Broadway in God, over 50 years. And I knew immediately that it was a big deal. But to me, what was even the bigger deal to me was that a director wanted a tap practitioner to choreograph the tap dancing that was happening in this Broadway production. And that is something that I think for me, like, not only was it special and meaningful to me, but I think it's, it is revolutionary, because generally they'll just get, the choreographer who has sort of some tap vocabulary, who's just going to string some steps together and do the thing and blah, blah, blah. But I love that he wanted that he really saw something in the work that I was doing and wanted to have that voice, that very specific voice, because I have a very specific tap voice in this production. And yeah, I love that.
So that person that you worked with was Jared Grimes, and did you know him?
Yeah, so I actually met Jared. Well, Jared wasn't cast yet. He got cast, he was cast a little, obviously during the casting process. But I've known Jared since he was 14 years old. His mom used to take him. He's from North Carolina, and she used to drive him up to take my class at Steps, actually. At Steps.
Really?
Yes, I was teaching at Steps. Shout out to Diane Grumet there, because I used to teach there. And yeah, that's how I met so many people. And Jared was one of those young dancers that used to come up. And so what was true about him then is still true, is that he is just such a joyful performer, and clearly, obviously, yes, oozing with talent. But that is the first time I have, that's his Tova. That was the first time. Yeah.
But then, so is his tap sequences are his tap sequences entirely choreographed, or was it collaborative with some improvisation on his part?
Yeah, no, his entire his sequences are totally choreographed. So, I mean, for the people in the room and those maybe listening afterwards, when we have a thing called pre-production that happens before you get into a Broadway rehearsal, and basically the choreographer gets an opportunity to set the ideas and with other dancers that are not cast. And so in December, I held pre-pro, and I began choreographing all of the numbers in the show, all of the tap numbers, including his solo. I had pre-pro again in January before we started rehearsing this February. But yeah, no, I knew what I wanted, because, we had Jared, but eventually, should we be so lucky that the show runs long, Jared's not always going to be there. So what if we get an actor who can't improvise, and what happens then during that moment, So no, everything is choreographed. There is a moment I did say to him, this was actually when we were in previews, we were having some difficulty with the floor, and there was a section where I just felt like it just wasn't working. And so I said, why don't you take these 2 bars leading into the final Charleston? So out of the whole dance, he improvises 2 bars of music. And an answer to your question, but it is choreographed. It's just that I also know that when you have artists like Jared, artists like John Manzari, artists like Kurt Solak that are in it, and they have the capability, and as tap dancers, improvisation is such a part of our culture. And it's kind of the thing that keeps it alive, that you have to give them something to live for. So to me, those 2 bars that they get to, 2 bars, 4 bars, they get to improvise every night, I think is something that keeps the show fresh for them. And I think it keeps the show fresh for the audience as well.
But so even when you were setting the choreography,
Mhm.
did he have input into it, or no, you had the whole thing done?
No, it was done. He had no input. I mean, I think that the nice thing is that, he trusted me. He knows me. He's known me since he was 14 years old. So he knows that anything that I was going to do was going to be integral and going to feel good, and, give him something to chew on. So, yeah, no, it was set. It was done.
So did you learn anything new working on Broadway? Any advice you would give to someone who's choreographing their first Broadway show?
Oh, wow. I would say, I mean, did I learn? I learned a lot. I learned a lot about structure and the process of, putting all of these elements together. That was a real education. Yeah, for sure. Any advice? A lot of people ask me how is it different than let's say choreographing for the dancers that I work with for my personal concert projects. And I think it doesn't feel much different, in that, the work is the work is the work, and the environment that I create with the dancers is the same. So I love working with people. I love working with I don't know. I think it should be fun and joyful. I think we're doing this because we want to have fun and we want to express joy. And so to me, I want people to win, and I want people to feel successful. And so where the ensemble, not all of the ensemble had the experience anywhere close to Jared's or John Manzari's, but they were on board and they were with me, and they rose to the challenge, and it was fun. And it was nice to see them practicing the tap choreo in between every other scene that they were rehearsing, because it really meant something to them. They wanted to really show up and do the best that they could. And I love them for it. So I don't know, any advice is like, I would say as a general rule is like, respect the bodies that are in the room, that are there generously giving you their time. Yes, they're being paid, but they don't have to be there. So to me, it's like just basic human respect. And then you're going to have a great rehearsal process.
That's lovely. That's
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell me about Chasing Magic.
Oh, Chasing Magic. Yeah, Chasing Magic is I feel like it's like it's like the pandemic uh baby, if you will, that is now a toddler. We're gonna be, doing Chasing Magic at the Joyce very soon, November 2nd, through the 13th. And Chasing Magic started as a film. It was a film aired at the invitation of Aaron Maddox, who was the director of programming at the time at the Joyce Theater, at a time when artists weren't working to the way that 2020 was like a dearth of opportunity. 2021 started to like slowly creep, kind of get better in April, May. But he contacted me in January. He said, I think a lot of institutions were pivoting toward how to create digital programming. And I had already done something at New York City Center that summer, which was Diary of a Tap Dancer, this like series, digital series, profiling various tap dancers around the country. And Aaron said, do you want to do something here at the Joyce? And I said, I would do it if I can have my own videographer and my own cinematographer, director, everybody. And I said, and then I was like, and he said yes. And then I said, okay, and who? Because a lot, some people had left the city. They were, Andre Imanishi, who was one of my mentees and great tap dancers who worked with me a lot, is in Japan still to this day. And so I was like, who am I going to get? And it was a time that really immediately forced, in the best way, to lean into relationships, into your friendships, into the people who you have deep connections with. And I called my good friend Anthony Marigerato, and we had 2 dances that we had done in the last 10 years. I was like, can we put this back together? I asked Naomi and John, who I had actually never really worked with. And I said, do you want to do this? And I gave them, we couldn't rehearse. There were no vaccines. This is the time, no vaccinations, nothing. So I would send them the videos, and they rehearsed. They basically learned the video, the choreo through the videos. And then we had one day to rehearse it, and we shot over 6 hours at the Joyce. And it was so fast. And Toria Beard was our director. Kurt Solak, tap dancer, was our filmmaker. And we just went in. Arturo, I called Arturo, and I was like, Arturo, I said, can you come? Will you just do like a 6-minute thing with me? And he said yes. Like everybody, I called Ron Brown. I was like, Ron, will you, I said, I have this dance that we've done. It's called Africa. I said, would you dance to the music of that? And he was like, yes. And everybody said yes. And so we literally just sort of slotted them in to these rehearsals, and we just, into these filming periods, and we filmed it.
So this was about dancing with friends.
It was literally about dancing with friends. And it was about just being grateful to be in a room together, being grateful to be alive, to have our health, in what I considered a very scary time, and we went in there with like a real determination to enjoy our time together, and to just and to just cement this, whatever this was, and I remember when I saw the first cut of it, I remember thinking, golly, if I don't ever do anything ever, I said I would be really happy with what Chasing Magic represents, in terms of everything.
Yeah, Angela Baker asked, is Kurt in it now?
So Kurt and John are in Funny Girl. So they are sadly not going to be with me at the Joyce this time around, but instead I have a wonderful young dancer named Jared Alexander, who I love, and Sean Kaminsky will be sort of stepping in for their roles. Mm-hmm.
So you were artist in residence at Harvard?
Yes.
Did you also teach, or was it all just your own thing?
It was my own. So I started my artist. I was brought there by Jill Johnson, and Jill Johnson asked if I would teach a class, and I said sure. And then the one class turned into being an artist in residence there. And what that meant was, what I did was I worked with. I basically engaged with a lot of just events that were happening in and around Harvard, with other artists as well. So like there was this incredible installation artist named Teresita Fernandez. Y'all should look her up. She's incredible. She had done an installation in Harvard Yard, and I was brought in to sort of, to like do something in the space with her work. Also, I worked with Jill on this, like basically this oral history project based on While I Have the Floor. And what we wanted to do was we interviewed several of the Harvard community members and artists that were also visiting. So like Liz Lerman, oh golly, there's so many people that I got to talk to, basically talking about unearthing our own histories. So like, because While I Have the Floor, to me, I had this obsession with just history and naming ancestors and naming our own family history, not just our artistic sort of family inheritance. And we just started doing these oral history projects there. So that was my artist in residence time.
So did you interact with many of the Harvard students?
Yeah. So, and then we also did a town hall there they were opening up the Smith Campus Center, which is like, basically like the hub for the whole university. And so, we held a town hall there, sort of using While I Have the Floor as an anchor, as a way of conversation into, what are people's on their, hearts and minds at the time. And not many of, I wasn't going into like their classes to, I wasn't teaching classes in that way, but I was doing a lot of engagement. I performed at the President Bakau's his inauguration. It was like the first president that they had like in like, the changeover in like 60 something years or something. So it was things like that. And then while I was there, I got this invitation to apply to be a Radcliffe Fellow. And I almost didn't do it because I didn't know what it was. Toria, my wife and frequent collaborator, said, she was like, you need to apply. So I applied. I proposed a project, and I got it. Like I couldn't believe it. I got it, and that was like one of the best years of my entire it was a milestone in my life for sure, being a Radcliffe Fellow.
Wonderful. So you said Tori is your frequent collaborator? What? Like
yes.
You need to practice, put on your shoes, collaborator?
No,
choreograph together.
She directs the projects that I work on, so she doesn't choreograph, and often helps me stage the work that I do. What I love about her is that she's her background is in modern dance. She was in so many modern dance companies, and she was in The Lion King on Broadway. So like her aesthetic, or not aesthetic, but her knowledge of dance was in a different pocket than mine was as a tap dancer. And I felt like to have her eye on my work could only elevate it. And so that's how our partnership started. And then, I don't know, we started collaborating. She started directing my work in like 2017 was like the first time that she started working with me in that way. But, she's somebody I trust implicitly.
All in the family.
All in the family.
That's wonderful. So, yes. But then also you're artist in residence at the Little Island?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
How is that? Tell us about that.
Little Island is incredible. If y'all haven't been there, it's really lovely.
I'm going to show you pictures of it because it is incredible.
It is incredible. And I was asked by Julia Krause, who's one of the artistic producers there. She said it didn't look like this at all. It literally was cranes and just cement. And she said, would you come for a site visit? So we went there in February of 2020. I think it was February of 2020. We went there. It was before the pandemic was, and I just was in awe of what was possible in that space. And so she just wanted me to see the what was possible, because she wanted me to perform in the amphitheater, that big, the one that's like in the round. It was sort of in the round, overlooking the water. And then about a couple months later, she said, actually, would you consider being artist in residence where you can curate the dance festival that happens and also like whatever you want to do? And I said, yes, of course. So I love being there. I think it's a beautiful addition to the city. It's gorgeous.
So have you performed there?
I have performed there, and I have curated now 2 summer Little Island dance festivals where one thing that was clear to me during the pandemic was as we shut down and we weren't doing anything, I realized I took stock of my life and my career, and I was like, I'm so fulfilled. I feel like I've done everything and more. I'm like, I've danced with the greatest dancers that have ever like graced this graced this earth. I've performed solo, I performed with an orchestra, I performed with the jazz trio, I performed in the subway, I performed at the White House, I performed always. I'm like, how do I show up now from here on in? I was like, I want to amplify the voices of my community. So as artists and residents at Little Island, one of the things that I have made a mission of doing is presenting percussive dance artists, because we don't often get those opportunities. Generally, when you look at dance festivals everywhere internationally, there's one percussive artist, there's one tap group, there's maybe one Kathak Indian, contemporary Indian group. There's maybe one of this, and I'm like, no, I think we need to. There's so many artists, and going back to Radcliffe, one of the things that was really transformative for me during my time there that I think I've taken into these other experiences is that I had never had the opportunity to work with that kind of support. And when I mean support, I mean financial support, to have a stipend where I don't have to worry about paying my rent and my mortgage or whatever, mortgage, car note, live, and I feel like the same thing goes for institutional support. Like, who do you have looking out for you that's saying, hey, here's a space where you can, the ideas that you've been working on in your upstairs or in your attic or in your basement or in your little 2x2, like, what would it mean for you to like have the amphitheater at Little Island, or have the Glade, which is like Joe's Pub outdoors, or be interactive in the playground there. So we have curated many artists there.
But so I have 2 questions. So first of all, should I be saying percussive dance artist instead of a tap dancer?
No, percussive dance artist is like my inclusive form of not just tap dancing, but like step dancing or katak, flamenco dance. It's anything that is like using literal your body as percussive dance forms. Yes.
So now then, tell me about the Little Island. Obviously, it's outside, it's outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about being a percussive dance artist with outside noise going on. Does it inspire? Does it fight? Does it work into it? What do you do with that when the siren goes by, when the ship beeps its horn,
or the helicopter?
The helicopter goes over, right?
Yeah, you just you embrace it because you can't make it go away. So
right.
I think it's part of it's part of the charm of the place. But they have a sound system and they're amplified. They have there's support there.
Were you using live music?
When I performed there, I had live music. Yes. Mm-hmm. And but I've seen performances there that are also both recorded and live, and they both work.
Wow, terrific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wanted to show one other thing here.
Sure.
And
hey.
I mean, really, for all your accomplishments, I hope you consider that this is really your immortality. First, but it's a forever stamp. Do you love that? It's a forever stamp.
I love that. And
then from my point of view, I also interviewed Michaela Lehrman.
And Michaela, yes. So that's my sister, yeah.
So now I got 2 of you. I got 2 of you tap people interviewed.
You're collecting us.
How did this happen?
You're collecting us as well. Yeah, Shannon, I see your question. Where can we get this? You can get that at any post office. If you go to the post office, or you can go online and get them at usps.com or your local post office and ask for the tap series. And I get to be one of the featured artists, tap artists on that. And it is surreal. So I was asked by Matthew Murphy is one of the premier photographers, theater and dance photographers in New York City, country, maybe. And he asked me, he said, hey, we're doing like a concept shoot. And it's just like literally just to see if what's possible. He said, we're inviting a bunch of people. He's like, will you come? And I was like, yeah, sure. This was January of 2020, I think. It was right before, it was like January, February of 2020. And I went, and I had a great time, did the shoot. And then in 2021, I'm in the bed. It was early in the morning. And I'm looking at like social media and I see a tag and somebody says, and it says like, congratulations. Like, how does it feel to like be on a stamp? And I was like, what are they talking about? And I couldn't see, I didn't have my glasses either. So I said to Tori, I was like, can you look at this? And she goes, you're on a stamp? You're on a stamp? And I was like, what? And then I saw this thing. I could not believe it. I was at the unveiling of Gregory Hines' stamp, my dear Gregory. And I performed at his unveiling at Symphony Space, like 2, maybe 3 years prior to that. And I just remember what it meant for us as a community to see one of our own, like in that, like in this stamp. So no, that is an incredible, I hate using the word honor because I'm not being honored. We're honoring tap dancing, but I feel incredibly privileged to, I'm really grateful that, when I first started, I just wanted to tap dance because it brought me joy and I wanted to like learn it. And I remember being a 23-year-old saying, I just want to contribute something. I want people to say she made a difference, And so when I see this like 25 years later, it's like, it's very, I don't know, it's very rewarding for sure. Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. It feels wonderful. So there's a couple questions here.
Sure.
Shannon Womble, I hope I haven't massacred her name.
Shannon, yes, his name.
You've mentioned breakthroughs you've had in your training earlier on in your career. What was the latest breakthrough or most recent realization you've had in your tap training as a professional?
The most recent realization. 2 things. The first thing is this. You have to take care of your body. When I was young, I would just do, the warm up was shake the foot and then just go for it. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up dancing. My first discipline class was at 19. So I didn't grow up with the discipline of really like the stretching and the whatever, yoga, any of those, that wellness that you have to do. And I recently I'll say this, but 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I found out that I have a fractured spine. I did not know this. All I know is that I had a lot of pain for a long time. And while that was like, can't even point to when it happened, but I know that even before that, I was starting to feel like as I get older, like, man, I need to like, things don't move in the way that they used to. So I have to take care of myself a little bit, much better. So I guess the recent realization is like really to take the time to take care of your body, so that you can do this as long as possible. Like I always said, I want to do this until I'm like, no longer can, no longer here. And hopefully that's a long time from now. But it's hard to do that when you're in pain. So take care of your body. The other thing is that I've realized, and I think I talked a little bit about it before, Shannon, and that is like the idea of like really letting go of like just enjoying it and trusting all of your training and trusting all of the work that you've done, so that when you get in the moment of performance or you get in the moment of exploration, you can really be free, and you do that with paying attention to your technique, but also just letting it go and honoring the moment, especially in tap dancing.
It's really about being there in the moment and being present.
Yes, 100%.
But that's so hard to do as a performer. You have so many things going through your mind when you're on the stage,
Yeah, it is. But it's like, it's really miserable if you are like, it's like you're doing the thing you say you love, but then you're not enjoying it because you're too busy, like, judging yourself. So it took me a long time to, like, now every time I step on the stage, it's a joy for me. I may be like, of course, like, I'm taking it super seriously, but I know what my intention is and I lead with that and I just let everything else go. you know,
That's the way
that's
to do
freedom.
it. That's
That's
the way to
freedom.
do it.
Yep.
So I want to quote you something that I'm pretty sure that you said. How you grew up, the food you ate, the culture you experienced, those are unique gifts for the world. Share them joyfully. That's the ticket to connection. I think
Mm,
that's so beautifully and wonderfully said. And my
thank you.
question, though, is what kind of food did you eat?
Well, oh gosh, I love food. Well, I grew up, in Puerto Rico, so I grew up eating, food that was made by my grandmother. Rice and beans and avocados and mangoes and coconuts, and that were like right there, plentiful, that were healthy. I loved coquito and limber, which are like the little ices, and um,
I've
you
only
know
had coquito once. It was so wonderful.
yeah, coquito's good. Um,
Uh-huh.
but all of those things that, like, really, they just are like markers of, like, yeah, just your environment and your family and your, I don't know, your culture, and
Yeah.
those
So
things
what are some
great.
other than the food, what are some other aspects
And
of your culture that you
and
cherish?
and music, the music and the community, music and community, and joy and
Now
gathering.
wait. Music, because you
Yes.
said that you did not like the music of Celia Cruz.
Oh, salsa in general. I despised it when I was a kid because I was like 10. I wanted to hear Madonna and Michael Jackson.
I know, but Celia Cruz, she was fantastic. Like her
Yes, she is.
music, her look,
Yes.
she was fearless. I
Oh my
mean,
gosh.
really.
No, we love her. I was talking about her actually right before I came up here to do this interview with you. No, I love it now. You kidding me? But when I was 11, I was like, I want to hear, like, Madonna and Michael Jackson. But my grandfather, my grandfather would play it all the time, and so I'd be like, oh, can you change the radio? Can you change it? But of course, when I was in college, actually, my is when I really started to gain an appreciation for it, and we would go to the Latin clubs, and we'll see Mark Anthony when he was, playing at Latin Quarter on 96th Street. And the music has become that culture. Like, of course, when you get older, it's like it hits you differently. I realized how beautiful Latin music is, and how beautiful, all of that was, like Fania All Stars. There's nothing like Fania All Stars, where Celia Cruz and Hector Lavoe and Cheo Feliciano and all those people,
Well,
came from. Ray
well,
Barretto.
so I'm very glad you've come around on Celia
Yo,
Cruz.
yes, I came around very, very quickly.
Well, whose music do you listen to now?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't even listen to the radio anymore, but let's see. I find, like, I'm into, like, there are voices that are really inspiring to me, like Crystal Monet Hall, who works with me. It's incredible, beautiful vocalist. Um, Shoshana Bean, love her voice. Um, I'm like, and honestly, I go back to the classics. It's when you look at my playlist and in the car, you're gonna hear Hector Lavoe, you're gonna hear Celia, you're gonna hear a lot of jazz, you're gonna hear Oscar Peterson, who I love. It's like those artists are like, they're top notch to me, and I feel like so many other things pale in comparison. So I don't know. I kind of go with the classics still.
Got it. Got it.
hmm
Ayodele, the
hmm
hour has flown by,
Oh man.
really flown by. About one
Yeah,
question
sure.
from Angela Baker before we go. What music are you dancing to now?
Oh, golly. What music am I dancing to now? Well, I would say Angela Baker. Angie, I think that because I've been so busy, the only music I really get to dance to is the music that I'm working with. So so that tends to be the Arturo O'Farrell, who, I mean, please go to any of his albums because he's just so incredible. And he'll be with me at the Joyce Theater, FYI. So for y'all. But Arturo, I go back to Oscar. Um I should look through my phone. I don't know.
And how about a jazz standard?
Oh, I just did Sophisticated Ladies, and we uh Caravan was the Caravan arrangement in Sophisticated Ladies is one that is not done often, and it is gorgeous. Caravan in general, like we have a dance to Caravan, that Arturo's arrangement in Chasing Magic, but I love Caravan. It's an incredible dance. It's a incredible song. Um, I think that Duke Ellington catalog is beautiful too. So golly, go down that path. I think it's important to visit those classics, to visit the OGs for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm,
So the hour's
mhm.
flown by. I
Yes,
cannot
thank you.
thank you enough. It's just been a delight talking to
Thank you, thank
you
you. You
and
too.
hearing your point of view and your journey through this crazy world of dance. And
Mhm.
it's just a delight, and
Oh,
can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate the energy. Thank you. Thank
Good
you,
night,
Alan.
good night, Ayodele.
Good night.
So, thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you've enjoyed this interview, please consider donating at stepsbeyond, that's one word.org. We would really appreciate your help so we can continue to bring you this interview series and our other endeavor, which is the Performance Lab. We have an upcoming Performance Lab on Sunday, November 13th at 7 p.m. at Steps on Broadway. It's a studio theater. We're thrilled to be presenting new and emerging choreographers live in our studio theater to an audience eager to see the new talents on the horizon. You can visit our website for full information, and please consider helping us out by donating so we can continue to bring you this exciting program. Once again, thank you to Ayodele, and thank you to all of you. Good night until the next time. Good night.